You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by the National Association of Convenience Stores.
Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Jeff Leonard with the National Association of Convenience Stores, and Convenience Matters is a show about things that matter to convenience stores. If they matter to convenience stores, they probably matter to you, because we get about 160 million customers a day. On average, somebody's at a convenience store every other day, buying gas, buying food, buying something. And I'm joined by my regular co-host.
My name is John Eichberger. I'm with the Fuels Institute in NACS. As Jeff said, the Convenience Matters. We talk about everything that fuels you, fuels your car, fuels your body, anything that keeps you on the go. Convenience stores are there to serve. And today we're going to have a conversation with somebody, an organization that really needs no introduction, AAA. They recently released a report talking about fuel quality and the role of the gasoline you choose and how it works in your engine and things to be looking out for. So we're happy to introduce Greg Brannon, the Director of Automotive Engineering and Industry Relations, and Avery Ash, the Director of Federal Affairs with AAA. So thank you guys very much for joining us.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for having us.
I want to start off, this report you guys put out, it's about a product called Top Tier Gasoline. Greg, can you very quickly explain what Top Tier Gasoline is and why AAA decided to take a look at that particular product that's in the market?
Well, sure. I appreciate it, John. Really, when we set out to conduct this research, we wanted to understand if there was a difference in gasoline quality, and what our preliminary findings and investigation yielded is that the only other performance standard beyond what the EPA's requirement for a lowest additive concentration of detergency in the fuel found is that the top tier standard was the only other performance standard that existed. So we sought out to answer the question, do those advertisements that you see pump side with a dirty intake valve and a clean one, is that real, or is it marketing?
So basically, we've always talked, and consumers have grown to believe that gasoline is basically gasoline from station to station, and we know that the different brands have different additive packages. Detergents are used predominantly for what purpose? Can you kind of help explain why detergents are necessary? When I think detergent, I think Tide. Obviously not putting Tide in our gasoline supply. So what are we talking about here?
Well, it's actually an excellent comparison, because they both accomplish the same thing in this scenario. Additive packages are placed into the gasoline, and it should be clear that there is an additive package in every gallon of gasoline that's sold in the U.S., because the EPA mandated that in 1996 that there is a minimum level of concentration of additive that is in every gallon, and that is to do just what you said. Just like your Tide is keeping your clothes clean, the gasoline needs to keep the internals of the engine clean. That includes the combustion chamber, the intake valve, and really keeping those carbonous deposits that build up through the operation of the engine, keeping those out of the combustion chamber, and making sure the fuel and air can enter in and exit as the engine was designed to do, and keep it performing within the emissions and performance that it left the factory with.
Now, Greg, this is Jeff. One of the things that we've heard in top tier, understand the difference with the detergent packages, but one of the things that we've heard is over the last 40 years, there's been a quantum shift. It used to be that different blends or different brands did have much different makeups, and it's been more consistent. But what the top tier is it's just looking at where they are different right now. So there's a smaller variable between different brands. Is that the case than there were several decades ago?
Yeah, certainly the landscape has changed over the past few decades, but I would say with EPA's regulations in the mid '90s. Mandating a detergent across all fuels, that leveled the playing field tremendously, where previously there may have been a great deal of variance. That that lowest additive concentration leveled the playing field. Now, as you know, or as you probably know, the base fuel in most markets is the same across all retailers. So really the only difference is the additive package that's placed into the tanker as it's being filled. And what our testing was focused on is those gasolines that were advertised as a top-tier gasoline or meeting the top-tier performance standards. Did they perform differently than the gasolines that did not? And our testings definitely had some interesting findings in that.
So I'll be completely honest and transparent here. When the auto industry started promoting top tier, about 10, 12 years ago, they had not communicated with my colleagues in the NACS government relations and the motor fuels advocacy side. Our initial knee-jerk reaction, I've told the autos this, was, well, here we go again. The autos screwed something up. They want us to change the fuel supply to fix it. I've spent through the Fuels Institute quite a bit of time in the last year talking to the autos and learning that top tier has certain properties and certain design characteristics that are designed to make sure the engine's running cleaner. What I found most compelling in the study you guys issued, Greg, was I've seen presentations on top tier, I don't know, a dozen times in the last 12 months. Your numbers are actually quite clear. Can you kind of summarize the magnitude of difference you guys found?
Absolutely. So to be clear, we used an ISO certified lab and a what is called an ASTM standard test methodology for testing gasoline deposits, and our findings were striking in the difference between top tier and the non-top tier gasolines that we used in the testing. And there were at the end of testing, which is really simulating about 4,000 miles of driving, the engines operated on top tier gasolines averaged 19 times fewer intake valve deposits than those that were operated on non-top tier gasolines. That's a significant number, and if you see it in a photo, it looks like the back of the intake valve is dipped in some goo for the ones that were non-top tier gasoline. So versus the top tier gasoline intake valves looking almost like new.
Now, Avery, I mean, Greg inferred a few minutes ago that you guys wanted to know if the marketing of a top tier fuel really meant anything to consumers. Somewhere else in your study, I've seen the numbers through NACS and through things you guys have done. Consumers are picking fuel retailers not because of the detergent package. They predominantly pick them because of location, convenience, and fuel price. What are you guys seeing in terms of current dynamics, what consumers are doing, and do you really think that this type of information is going to help them make different choices?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely, and I think you're right that when we surveyed consumers, so we did a survey of 1,000 consumers to go along with our automotive research that Greg was outlining, and the two biggest reasons that U.S. drivers choose a gas station are location and price. We found that a rewards program comes in substantially lower than that, and coming in last was gas that contained a detergent. I think part of that, though, and we've as a representative of 56 million members in North America, we get a lot of questions about how drivers use their vehicle, and what sort of fuel they should be choosing, what these different words mean, and that was really the kind of question that we'd set out to answer. Was with all the marketing that takes place at the pump, what should you actually be paying attention to? And that's where with the top tier program, which actually provides a standardization, we found some pretty clear benefits. And when we're talking to consumers about it, I think now we have an answer, which is, the benefits of using a top tier gas are pretty clear. And that from our surveying, we found that the average top tier fuel costs about 3 cents more per gallon, and that was averaged out over a 12-month period. And it provides some tangible benefits to consumers, not just in terms of how clean their engine is, which I think is hard to see if you're a driver and you're not popping open the hood and looking at your engine, but it also helps to it can increase your fuel economy by 2 to 4%. It can fix drivability issues. and it decreases emissions as well. So, we think there are some real benefits to these sorts of increased detergent packages. I mean, the challenge is that, that as consumers go to the pump, making sure they have all the information necessary to make an informed decision. We're certainly not suggesting that you as a driver should, drive around for 45 minutes trying to find a top tier station. The regular fuel will work just fine in your car. But if you've got a choice, or if you want to know what that top tier brand means, we're providing some information here that we really feel like our members and the American motoring public at large can really leverage in their everyday decisions on where and how they refuel their vehicle.
Avery, I guess the magic question is, and I don't know if anybody really has the answer, is how do you communicate all this complex information to consumers who are driving down the road at 45 miles an hour, thinking about price? Maybe they see your price, maybe they see your brand. The math equations and all that I think are great, but how do you communicate that to get them to go to your store? It's almost the same conversation we have about fresh food inside your store. How do you let them know that you have it and tell that story very simply? Were there certain consumer segments that are more receptive, or are there ways that you suggest that to have that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of different answers there. Through our surveying, we did find that baby boomers are more likely to be buying gasoline, 41%, than millennials when it comes to buying gasoline that has an enhanced detergent additive package, and that men at 44% are more likely to buy gasoline with enhanced detergent than women at 26%. So there are some demographic changes there, but I think your question of kind of broadly, how do you communicate this is, it starts with some clear research like the stuff like what AAA has performed here that helps to really boil it down to a clear answer. And our recommendation for our members is, for optimal vehicle performance and for fuel economy, that drivers should use a gasoline that meets the top tier standard when possible. You should certainly follow your vehicle owner's manual and use the correct fuel for your vehicle. And also, if you're having problems with a rough idle or if the engine's cold, if you've got hesitation during acceleration, you may see increased benefits from making sure you're using a top-tier fuel in those situations for several fill-ups and really help to flush out and clean out your system. I think that's the kind of message that when consumers are aware of the benefits they can get and when they actually know what the brand means, you can see demand for it, and you can see people start to recognize and actually be willing to pay a couple of pennies more for something that they know they're going to see benefit from. I mean, I think that there's some interesting analogy between the rise in the purchase of organic foods. Years ago, I think if somebody had said, "Hey, this is an organic apple," one kind of looked at them sideways and what's that mean? But through some effective branding and through some standardization, that's now an additional choice that consumers have when they go into their local supermarket to purchase an organic apple or another apple. They both taste good, but there may be some additional benefits to buying that organic one, and it's an additional choice for consumers.
So you actually believe, through the studies you've done, the historical analyses, that once consumers perceive a certain fuel type as better for their car, they may be willing to spend a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, and I think when you're talking about a little more, I mean, we are seeing that it's a very little more. So we're talking in the neighborhood of about 3 cents more per gallon for a top tier fuel versus a non-top tier brand. And I think price still continues to be the number one driving force, as does location. But I think that there is added value to a consumer when they pull up to a pump, and we do see that while detergent level rings in at a lower 12%, that rewards programs and brands are well more than double that. So I think there is that value and there is that understanding and from consumers of wanting to purchase good quality fuel. They're certainly making decisions based on their pocketbook and based on their location. But we think there is that additional role that's appropriate for a brand such as our standardization, such as a top tier, to be included in the market and offered as an additional option for consumers that does provide some material benefit.
And John, it almost got me thinking, hearing Avery talk about various groups that are looking more for this type of fuel, the kinds of consumers that may baby their car more. And one opportunity struck me that maybe retailers can think about is something like if you have a strong car wash sales in your area, whether at your store or elsewhere, might be saying people care about their cars. Maybe there's a way to tell that story if you're doing something like that. So I guess it's looking at capitalizing on what you're seeing in the market, whether you have a story to tell.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting as well. We had a meeting with NACS earlier in 2016 talking to people, retailers and some of the automakers about top tier, and some of the retailers said, is there really a competitive advantage of offering a top tier gasoline? I think what you guys and your report are showing is that there may actually be, especially as consumers start to understand it. I think on the price sensitivity question, it'll be interesting to see if prices seesaw like they historically have, and if we ever get to a point where prices are higher than they are now, what consumer behavior would be. Because when we've surveyed people, Jeff, we found that 40% of consumers will go 5 minutes out of their way to save a nickel. Now, at $2 a gallon, probably not so much. $4 a gallon, maybe. And if they can be convinced that using a certain fuel is going to improve their fuel efficiency, that may actually shift them in a certain direction.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Avery.
Yeah, and I was, AAA has long been a source for consumers on those sorts of station-specific gas prices. And we certainly hear lots of stories, and we see the proof that people want to drive around and find the best price on gas. When we were talking about that 3 cents additional and the average price we were seeing for top tier fuels, I think what would maybe be important to also add there is that's a 3 cent increase in terms of the retail price. When we're talking about the price for a retailer to add the detergents necessary to get their fuel to a top tier, we're talking about tenths of a penny. So the additional price for retailers, including that, is tenths of a cent. There's nothing saying you're not gonna need to increase your prices by 3 cents to cover the cost of those additives. When we looked at the average for top tier retailers versus non-top tier, that was the difference we saw.
Which I guess could be inferred that there's a marketing benefit of having it if they can afford it.
Yes.
To do that. Then, Greg, going back to you, it's been a while, and I can't remember the last time I've seen it, to see a technical report of this nature from AAA. Is this a newer direction for your organization? Is this something you guys plan on doing more of? I mean, you guys have such a trusted brand and so many loyal members and followers. I think you guys doing stuff like this is extremely beneficial to the market, but it's not something I've seen recently. Is this something we should expect more of?
Absolutely, John. We've really over the past few years now have focused on vehicle technology and the members and consumers' use of their vehicles, and have done a series of research projects related to driving fuel efficiency, and it's everything from how to get the most out of the vehicle that you have. We've done some research on EPA ratings of vehicles and making sure that the ratings are actually following the actual road performance and what consumers are seeing, and then most recently this study on gasoline quality. We also have coming soon a report related to the use of premium fuel in a vehicle that is rated for regular octane and the benefit or lack of benefit associated with that. So absolutely look for more technical information related to fuels, as well as other subjects for vehicle operation, everything from advanced driver assistance systems to the disappearing spare tire. We've done a lot of work in the past couple of years, and we look forward to more coming in the future.
Well, I know NACS has always appreciated working with AAA, and I know having you guys involved at the Fuels Institute has been a great addition. And I look forward to seeing the more technical stuff coming through. For people out there listening who want to learn more about the research you're doing, is there a website we should direct them to?
Absolutely. If they'd like to learn more, please go to newsroom.aaa.com, and you'll find all of our research posted there.
Well, I appreciate you guys being on on the phone with us. There's so much going on, changing the fuels and vehicles market. It's always nice to have additional information for consumers, and we will continue to work with you guys to talk to our members. So thank you guys very much for joining us, Jeff.
And don't forget to have that new report about why convenience stores are so awesome to buy gas and other items at. So see about that research as well. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
You've been listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. For more information about the National Association of Convenience Stores, go to nacsonline.com.